It's the end of March. We've opened up this webinar a few minutes early so folks could start to join us. Thanks for attending today. Right before we went live, we were just talking about travel. Artists just got back from a trip overseas, and I'm jealous and looking on Kayak to figure out when when my next trip's going to be. Artist, how was that trip? You went to Paris, right?
Yeah, just a little bit jet lagged. So if I fall asleep during this, no, I'm just kidding. It was nice. It was great. Regardless of what the news were saying about the strikes going on, everything was great.
Oh, that's awesome. Eric, have you been anywhere interesting lately, or do you have any fun
I have
trips
not
coming
been-
up?
I have not been anywhere interesting lately. I live outside of New York City. I've got an overnight in New York this weekend for a friend's birthday. I've got a conference in New York coming up. But in May, I may be headed down to Colombia, assuming that Artist approves my time off request that I haven't put in yet. So
Columbia, South Carolina, is that?
No, Colombia, the country. So Cartagena, if all goes to plan. So.
Oh, that's amazing. I was
Very
just
nice.
in the luxurious Williamsburg, Virginia a little earlier this month. It was actually incredible. I don't know if we have any William and Mary crew on this call, but gosh, it's a cool town. I don't know that it was ever on my bucket list prior to the trip, but I'll put the plug in. If you've never been to Williamsburg, Virginia, and you like to drink beer, that is a place to go. Breweries for days and pancake houses. I learned those are my two takeaways from Williamsburg.
Well, is there anything else you need? Beer. I mean, it's a lot of carbs, but beer and pancakes. That
Beer
sounds
pancakes.
right. Sounds okay to me.
But two staples in my diet. It's great. Oh, Laura's going to Orlando after she graduates. Oh, that's awesome. Laura, we need to know if you're a big Disney fan, because we have Brendan, who has also responded in this chat, lives very, very close to the Disney parks. And I'm sure the two of you could sync up and talk all theme parks all day. All right, we're at the top of the hour. If you're just joining us, we've been catching up on our travel adventures and absolutely want to hear where you have been recently or where you're headed soon. Amen to some sunshine, Jennifer. I feel that. All right, let's get started though. Welcome to today's webinar, BoltBot, how chatbots increase student engagement and retention. I'm Mallory. I'm the VP of Marketing and Demand Gen here at Element 451. I'm going to be your moderator and a co-presenter today. And I have two awesome, well-traveled colleagues who are joining me. First is Artis, our founder and CEO. Artis is highly accomplished as an entrepreneur, a technologist, and an educator. He has a passion for AI and data-driven solutions. So today's topic is right up Artis's alley. And we also have Eric Range, our VP of Product. Eric has nearly 20 years of experience in higher ed, both on campus. He was an AVP of Enrollment, Marketing, and Operations, and off campus, working in various partnership and product roles in ed tech. So we're so thrilled to be here with all of you today. I've just got a couple quick housekeeping items before we dive in. Today's webinar is going to last about 45 minutes. And yes, we are doing a live demo in part of this webinar. We are going to try and make that interactive. So if you've got questions, please ask them. We've got a chat room open. Make sure you have your share settings marked to everyone so we can all get in on the fun, and share your ideas, ask your questions there, or just send those questions directly to me using that question feature. Either works. And if you're on social media, don't forget to use the hashtag Engage Academy with any of your big takeaways today. We'd love to amplify anything that you share. And don't forget, we will record today's webinar. So look in your email in a couple days. I'm going to be sending you a note as soon as the content is available. If you have to duck out early or have colleagues who weren't able to join us, obviously we'd love for you to pass this session on to them. And then finally, please help us help you. We've got a quick post-webinar survey. Your comments and your ratings are always greatly appreciated, and we really do read them. And we also use your comments to help influence future topic selections. So that is a great way for you to leave us some really direct feedback. I'll share a link to that survey towards the end of the webinar. All right, let's get started. I'm going to kick us off here and kind of set the stage for today's conversation. And I'd like to draw attention to two major hurdles that I believe are preventing leaders and teams on college campuses from doing their best work. These are two hurdles that I also believe are going to be positively impacted by artificial intelligence, and the teams that embrace AI will be able to overcome these hurdles faster and easier than their competition. The first challenge is this higher ed brain drain and some lack of expertise, right? Staff retention is really hard right now. And when existing team members leave, all that historical knowledge goes with them. I know I'm preaching to the choir. So coming out of the pandemic, we've all experienced this drain of talent, of resources, of dollars. We know that higher ed has also historically been an under-resourced industry. And so when we struggle to keep talent, it just compounds a lot of these challenges. There's tons of open positions, and that means the individuals who are on our teams have to wear more hats than they ever have before, which results in a lack of expertise when one person has to do everything, right? So on top of it, we're also underfunded. So it's exhausting, right? And like I said, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because I've interviewed thousands of you, thousands of enrollment and marketing professionals over my career. And back in 2008, when we're talking emerging technology, it was social media. In 2012, it was responsive design. Now in 2023, it's artificial intelligence. Regardless of the technology of the day, there's just this one consistent thread in all of these conversations. Leaders want to build more effective teams, and we're constantly trying to figure out how to do that, how to make our staff more productive, how to reduce the things that are really time consuming or require a lot of manual labor. We want our teams of 3 to feel like teams of 10. And I really think that's where AI has a role, and specifically chatbots, which is what we're here to talk about today. That's going to have an incredible impact. It's going to make your team of 3 feel like a team of 1,000, which leads me into this second challenge. The current student engagement process is broken. Now, my entire career has been spent finding innovative solutions to digitally engage prospective students, whether that was sitting in a marketing team on a campus, to spending 10 years at an agency, now in ed tech. I've just seen time and time again that the more personalized the engagement, the better, right? It's everything. And the current learner really does now expect us to communicate and relate to them the way that corporate brands do, and in a really highly personalized and relevant way. It's about making sure that we're getting the right message to the right person at the right time and in the right place. That's a lot of rights that we need to get right. And whether that's dealing with, say, a prospective student who has some critical questions about their financial aid, or a current student who's showing some early signs of struggle, it just consistently comes down to the same challenge. You need to have the right content for each individual. But let's think about that first challenge again, right? Like, producing content is hard and time consuming, and there is a brain drain happening in this industry. So attempting to scale content right now at the individualized one-to-one way, it's near impossible. And I think we're all feeling that. So long story short, the old way isn't working anymore. And I know that our solution at Element 451 was created as a way to address strategic enrollment management concerns throughout that entire modern learner's journey. And we took on this chatbot challenge as a key solution to help teams with both of these challenges. Prospective students and current students, right? They need access to information in the place that they want it. And so that typically means not just during standard business hours. And we need to figure that out too. We know that every opportunity we have to connect with a student is really important. I love this stat from the Chronicle. 97% of first-year students who felt valued by their college intends to return. Human connections are, of course, critical to achieving this, but we cannot be everywhere. So without strong support from the digital space, many institutions are just simply not staffed to succeed with human power alone. And I think that this is why live chat widgets have failed higher ed. It really all boils down to answering questions quickly. And so for the last, maybe 5-10 years, we've been looking to live chat widgets as the solution. So, right, like, let's talk this through. We go out, we buy the tool. It probably doesn't integrate with the CRM. And then the realities of staffing it come crashing down. We have to figure out who's going to staff it. And gosh, it's probably only available during those certain hours when that person's available. So then we have to decide if we're just going to ask that staff member to sit around and answer live chat questions all day and wait for those chats to come in. So then we start to look to our teams, right? Say, oh, let's assign this to, say, our front desk team or a team of students. And that just winds up in inconsistent answers and lagging response times. Because if I'm sitting at the front desk and a family walks in, I'm going to pay attention to the people in front of me, right? I'm going to greet that family that just showed up for their tour. But at the same time, I might have 3 people sending in live chat questions through the website. And like the cloning machine doesn't, we haven't figured that one out yet. So the person is going to always prioritize the people in front of them. And when on top of all of this, that chat isn't actually integrated into the CRM, no one has visibility into the full history of the conversation with that individual. So again, we have a lot of problems that just keep compounding really, really quickly. There's a better way, friends. Early research for AI-powered chatbots is really promising. So institutions are actually reporting double-digit lifts in student retention when they employ these tools. And that's possible because the chatbot is helping support students and stepping in when they're at risk or answering their questions very quickly. So I know we have a lot of enrollment leaders here on the session. You know the power of early alert, and your student success teams are working hard to identify what are those circumstances or events that can prevent or provide an early indicator of need or of risk, and and then therefore indicate the necessity for intervention and engagement by the institution. But here's where I'm going to cue Artis in, because I know that we've been thinking through this a lot, and here at Element, we actually take a slightly different approach. So Artis, I'll turn this over to you.
Thanks, Mallory. So, you mentioned that early alerts have been really important in the past, and it's, it's this idea of identifying, flags that that student is at risk or something is happening. So we define a set of rules, and then a human, which is our best option right now, is charged with identifying if those students reaches those particular thresholds and needs assistance, right? So because of the necessity for a high touch human intervention, the processes are kind of very difficult and really hard to maintain. And sometimes they're driven by faculty members, which don't, kind of switch, put those switches back in there. Of course, you can go to another, this might be an old one, but maybe we can update it to another switchboard, which can be a little bit more digital. So I don't know if Eric, if you have that next slide in here. So, if you think about it, this is happening, day to day. It's happening one-on-one with students. But then what happens if those students are not there? What happens if you're not interacting with those students, right? What happens after 5 p.m., right? Now, what do we do when most of the time that student spends interacting with our digital tools are in a very personal space through their phone or through something else? we don't have the capacity to, we leave, right? So we don't have the ability to do that or to touch base with those students. So rather than thinking about kind of this early alert approach, we are thinking more of an early success approach, right? So we want to make sure that students are receiving that guidance at the right time, that they need it in whatever communication channel they prefer and whatever topic they need, right? So kind of this now idea of having everything there at the same time. So if students can talk to a bot who can change their personality, can be a counselor or a friend or a coach, can manage answers and guide them towards their, their issues, they're more likely to reach out, right? So if they know somebody's there, it doesn't have to be a person, right? And that's the thing, because if we know that there's a person on the other side, we can be a little bit more guarded, right? But there is no judgment with a bot, right? It's there to help us. So, it's one of those things where it becomes even more important to have that response in there. And then once that happens, then the bot can also do work, right? It's not just this ability for them to give you answers, right? It can also do, it can act, it can kind of do that handoff, that transition between the Q&A to something else. It's like, well, let's just schedule an appointment for you. And this is something, the way we're thinking about an element, because you're in the context of that, of the data, we know that we have to be, rather than being a human first, right? We need to be, we need to be digital first, right? And when that happens, then we have the ability to kind of have the context of that whole student in there. So we have the context of prior conversations, and we have the context of the students, if they pass the test or not, and kind of the ability for that bot to act with the context and full knowledge. So we're more the ability to be more reactive, or not be more reactive, but be more proactive rather than reactive, right? And that's kind of our approach here at Element. It's that we want to be we want to kind of take that ability to, rather than having alerts, we want to be proactive. So there is that early success, right? And we're guiding and removing barriers around that student, because who doesn't want to be reached out to and say, hey, how are you doing today? Is there anything I can do for you? I know you have a big test coming up. You can do it. So that encouragement goes a really, really long way, as part of that. And Eric, if you just keep going to the next slide, that'll be great. So some of these more proactive approaches are known to be very successful in not only moving students along and giving them information at the right time, but also touching base with those students when they need it the most, right? Because we know that 90% of the effectiveness of what our offices do around student support is providing them with the right information at the right time they need it, and giving them a shoulder to rely on when they need that extra support. Everybody has very different circumstances, and we're kind of connecting the dots for them. We're kind of guiding them through along that way. So as part of that, we're thinking about this in one, Mallory talked about the challenge of the brain drain happening. We don't have a lot of folks here, at your institutions. There's a lot of content that needs to be done and written, and everybody needs to get up to speed, and you have different levels of folks who are in your teams. And that's why Element has kind of been a great tool for segmenting and communicating with people and the different channels. However, what we didn't have was, we didn't have the loop. We didn't have the closing of the loop. We knew what the student was doing. We can do great segmentation, but the content is missing, right? Who's going to build and who's going to create and who's going to write all that content? Well, we're kind of in the beginning of closing that loop, and that's why we released and we announced two great things, right? We announced Copilot, which is our generative AI based on OpenAI and chat, the same technology as ChatGPT and GPT-4, the ability for us to kind of create content and modify content and be a Copilot, be an assistant writer with you. You probably have seen some of these tools kind of in the news or pop up in a lot of different areas, but because this is integrated with Element, we feel that we have everything together in order to give you that context to do better writing for you and close that loop. So anything from just tweaking the tone of an email to generating subject lines based on prior conversations to making something better in your landing pages. And then as we move along, we're adding more capabilities there as well to basically create full campaigns and other things as well that kind of closes that loop in terms of putting your whole agency into that box. And BoltBot is really then the other part of that, which is your newest team member, right? That conversational chatbot and helper that is responding to students. So we announced both those two things, and again, Copilot, a lot of tools in there, but one of the things that I'm really proud of is the ability for us to make it really, really easy and really fast for you to improve the content of your writing. Think about spell checking and grammar and changing the tone right away that improve writing. Think about like Grammarly. You don't need Grammarly anymore. It's like that's just goes out the window, because now you can just hit that one button and then you'll fix all your spelling mistakes, all your grammar, and you'll kind of change it to the tone that you want. Generating subject lines, shortening content, changing the tone. The cool thing about drafting a reply, so what Mallory mentioned before, and Eric will show this in a little bit as well during the demo, is that what happens if I go to a live chat or I go to one of my conversations, an email comes in and I don't know how to answer it because I just started as a counselor, or I just started as somebody. Well, there's a full knowledge base, right? Then everybody has put together. There's the website content. There is other pieces of content that's been kind of put together, and that's part of the knowledge base. And instead of me going and finding all these things, I can just click that draft reply. It will go out based on the question, based on the history, based on that student. You'll pull in the right information and you'll draft a reply for me as if it was, like as part of that bot, as if I actually had all that knowledge in my head. So now you can onboard somebody very, very quickly, handing things like, and then, in some cases you're going back and forth with the chat or back and forth with the conversation over email thread. And you're like, oh boy, how do I translate that to somebody who's, who I need to tell them in like 10 different, 5 bullet points is like, all right, this is what they said in this conversation. This is what they're asking for. Well, we can summarize the conversations in 5 bullet points, right? And you'll just pull all of the relevant pieces and just summarize it, so you can just hand it off to somebody or just, send it to a chat. When we talk about BoltBot, this is now the automation part, right? So we connect and provide information to students that, when they need it, any time of the day. So until now, chatbots have been, a step forward, but the technology really hasn't been there for us to have conversational communications with a chatbot. And it's been very, very hard to populate them or even write content for them, right, in a certain way, because it's very formulaic. It's decision trees, right? It's like, okay, if it does this, then say that. It's keyword based. However, now with the large language models, we're thinking about this in a very, very different way, where it's all about semantic meaning. So if I ask, if I have my knowledge base and I can ask it 5, 10 different ways in different languages and semantic meaning of my content, it understands it and it puts it as part of my context, and it does it responds conversationally. It has manners, it has memory, it can do multilingual because your knowledge base doesn't have to, it can be in English. And if somebody asks in Spanish, because of these large language models like ChatGPT, it can kind of respond in different languages, if you're asking it in different language. It knows your school because it has that context. And of course, it does a lot more than just do Q&A, right? Because we're integrating with Element, it knows the person's profile, it knows where they are in the funnel, it knows what classes they have. So it knows all those pieces, and it can kind of do work. It can set up a task for somebody, can set up an appointment. And these are things that we are incorporating every single day over the next few months. We're adding more and more of these capabilities to integrate it better with Element. So the single pane of glass becomes that, multi-channel conversation, either through chat or through text message or through email, right? Or WhatsApp. And it's really goes beyond kind of this current technology and chatbot. All right, well, I did talk a lot about this stuff, right? So let's, he'll just handle all of those things for you. So rather than me just keep talking here, because I'm really excited about this, I'm just going to let Eric kind of give you a sneak peek at this and kind of what we've been up to. Eric.
Great, thanks, Artis. Yeah, we're really excited about all the work we've been doing around Copilot and BoltBot the last several weeks. What I'm going to demo today is sort of the first iteration of our Q&A functionality and how that will work. But as Artis said, right, because this is multi-channel, I'm going to be demonstrating it on our live chat widget. So this can be embedded in your institutional website, or if you're an Element partner, of course, our landing pages as well. But as Artis mentioned, this will also work on other communications channels like text message and WhatsApp when we release WhatsApp later this year. So this is where that kind of student check-in piece, right, where you can send out that preemptive message to the student saying, hey, it's midterms week. Do you have any concerns? And then they can chat with the bot about, getting tutoring help or what have you if there's a concern. So let me show you kind of the first piece of what we're doing here with live chat, and let you see kind of the difference between chatting with a bot and hitting a bunch of keywords and decision trees. So I'm going to go ahead and start here. As Artis mentioned, you've got the ability to give your BoltBot its own personality. This opening kind of message here is totally customizable, as is the little avatar here. So you can make it your school mascot. You can give it another personality if you want. And as Artis mentioned, it's got manners. It knows who folks are. So coming in here, I can start my conversation with hello. It will talk back to me a little bit. And, I don't have to just have questions. So if the student says something like, I'm excited to live on campus, the bot can take that information, and it's not going to go, well, that wasn't a question, right? Which is what some bots will do that are out there today, right? So this bot will interact with us. Great. That's great. Living on campus is an exciting and enriching experience, right? And as a former residence life guy, I love that it says that. I can also say, hey, I'm worried about living on campus. And I get a reaction there. Now, what's great is the bot can, manage all of this, but of course, all of this is coming into the conversations area in Element as well. So we can start to measure kind of sentiment analysis here and go, hey, here's a flag we want to raise for a human, because here's Eric, he's chatting with us and he's saying to the bot that he's worried about living on campus or he has concerns, right? But the bot is, again, kind of being a little bit of a mentor friend, right? Hey, it's normal to have those kinds of concerns, your first time living away or what have you, but I'm here to help, right? So you can see where the bots and the humans can kind of play well together and be on a team to get student success really going here. So again, there's lots of things. We've loaded our knowledge base with some information about our fictional university here. So, Cook Hall is one of our residence halls here at Training University. So maybe that's where the student just got their, housing assignment for next year, and they're concerned about that. So they can get some information there. But this,
I can totally see your residence life, experience there.
Is it leaking through, Artis?
Just a little bit, yes.
I have to say, I love how empathetic Ember was in her last response, saying, "Oh, that's normal." I can just like I had those concerns when I was going off to college, and the tone was perfect.
Right. So here we're talking a little bit about a residence hall here, but obviously it's not all about the things that happen outside of the classroom. They might be struggling in a class. So if they come to the chatbot and say, I need help with calc, is the So the bot's going to take that. It's going to look at our knowledge base, see, when the tutoring center is open, and this, when this responds, you can start to see where beyond just the Q&A, and when we interject the ability to do more work, where the chatbot can say, okay, here it is, the tutoring center is open, here's the hours. Here again, this isn't just keyword searching, right? It knew that you can get help with calculus during those hours. To make an appointment, go ahead and go to this website that I borrowed from my alma mater to feed the knowledge base here. But you can see how the next evolution of this, of course, is to actually have the bot guide them through scheduling that appointment, right? And again, there's all kinds of concerns here, right? I have a hold, help. Right, and these are the ways students would talk, right? The students aren't going to come in and ask the bot very nicely, oh, I just got a notice that I have a registration hold on my account. Can you please assist me, right? They're going to get right to the point. Hopefully they're this nice when they get the registration holds, right?
Eric, what I also love about this too is so often I think sometimes in higher ed, especially like I worked for an agency that did websites, and one of the biggest challenges was helping get that bureaucratic language off the website, right? And this goes right to that student doesn't necessarily know the proper way to say what a hold means, and this chatbot just needs to like understand without requiring the student to know the language and the bureaucracies of higher ed.
Exactly. You have no idea how many times, Matt, I was in the same kind of spot where we were going through information architecture, and we used to spend hours on deciding what to label academics, admissions. Do we label it this? Do we label it that? That's all gone because it understands admissions. It understands applications, process, enrollment, like all of those things mean the same thing. And it understands all that stuff semantically, and it's able to pull all the right information and return it to you. So,
right. I mean, how many meetings have we all sat in on campuses where it's like, well, that's on our website, right? And like, okay, even if you knew where to find, okay, but we have a search. Site searches are notoriously terrible, right? Especially in
and expensive,
right? Especially in super complex institutional websites, multiple campuses, and everybody kind of managing their own content. It can get really complicated out there very quickly. So here,
Eric, he can exactly. You're absolutely right. He can. Sorry, I'm reacting to one of the questions on the. This is great because everybody on the chat is asking to do different things. If we ask it to, I'm blocked from enrolling versus I have a hold. Help. Of course, it will not give you the same answer. It will give you a slightly different answer every single time. So it is not pre-programmed with specific answers. It just pulls the answer organically.
It's possible that you might have a hold on your account. Gee, look at that.
So,
all right.
There you go.
Live, folks.
Yeah, live demo, and the demo did a trick. So we always like that. So you can see again, we're searching for meetings, right? And as Artis said, this isn't just a if question one, give response one, right? I was playing with this earlier and I asked it about if the campus gym was open, and the one time it gave me one answer, which was very matter of fact, yes, these are the hours. When I asked it the second time, it said, yes, the campus gym is open, here are the hours. And some of our residence halls have, small fitness centers within them. And I was like, wow, that blew my mind. And I'm the guy who's helping develop this, right? So you can see where students can really start to engage with this in different ways.
All right.
Others.
So what's next, Eric? Are you going to take us? So now you're seeing this, and it's like, okay, now we have all these prepared questions in the back end, and it's all very nicely typed in. And wait.
So, wait, there's more. So here in our conversation settings within Element, you can see some of the back end settings, our bot's name, our avatar, that sort of thing, that greeting. We want to make this really flexible. So we've got the ability to schedule the bot if you only want it working after hours, if you want it to be working alongside you during the day. Those are all options that you all would have. If you want to limit it to working on just certain pages. But here's our knowledge base, and you can see that we've got some things in here that cover a variety of topics. And you'll see here in this column, the type, that we're loading things in two different ways. So we didn't ask it any FAFSA questions, but we have this big blob of text, right? That's a very technical term, our big blob of text here, that we literally just went off and copied and pasted from the FAFSA deadlines page on studentaid.gov. And this is just a big, long list of every state and every, whatever. It's not particularly formatted well. You would probably, as a person, need help figuring some of this stuff out, right? The way this is formatted, but we can go in, we can ask the bot, what's the deadline? The federal deadline is this. Hey, what about New Jersey? And again, there's another opportunity where as we start merging in that profile data, if Eric asks that question, he might get the answer for New Jersey because we know Eric lives in New Jersey. Artis would get the answer for North Carolina, and Mallory would get the New York answer, right?
Exactly.
Who we are, so we don't even have to feed it that extra little bit of information.
And that's the power of integrating or having something like this as part of your CRM and as part of Element specifically, is because we can insert that context at the time that the question is being answered. And it then can use all that context, all the data that you have in the CRM. You can use that rather than just, the library of questions that you've given it.
So the other way we can do this, and again, this is some information from the Student Aid website, is we can just say, hey, there's a great source of truth out there on either on my institutional website or some third-party website that I want to make sure the bot understands. And I can point it towards a URL, hit save. You can see it's starting to learn that, and it's going ahead and it's learning it. And this can take, I've seen it as fast as 10 or 15 seconds. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes if it's a big set of content. But now, if you are confident in your website as a good source of truth or individual pages on your site, and there you go. It took that whole article about the student aid report from studentaid.gov, and now it's got that information ready to serve students with that information.
Let's ask it a question about that, because this feels very tricky to me. Like when you're
how do I get my SAR?
And the part that's really important here is that those URLs, you don't need to load it into Element, right? So you leave your source of truth wherever it is. And if you have a big Word document, you just copy it and paste it in there. If you have a website, you just put URL, and then we'll go in and refresh it every so often. If you have a whole website that you want to put the whole site map in there, you can do that, and you will go ahead and scrape all of that and multiple pages. Oh, look at that. It actually found it.
So, within, I don't know, under a minute, we added content and the bot was able to answer questions on that.
Perfect.
See, it's really easy to add that knowledge. And of course, as we've said, bots are great and they're going to do a lot of great work for us, right? But the human element is still going to be there and needed to be there in some cases, right? So here we are in our conversations module. If you're an Element partner, you know this module really well. It's one of our core features. So here you can see, as a human, I can come in and join this conversation and see what happens, see what the bot's talking about. Maybe I want to know what this conversation's all about. So I can come in here to my AI assist that Artis was talking about.
My Copilot, yep.
My Copilot, and come in and get a quick summary of all the things that the bot was talking about, so I can jump in and assist this student, right? Now that I'm part of the conversation, right? Hey there. And you can see that on the front end now, Eric Range is chatting with me, and I'll just ask the same question again. Let's see, when is the so now that's chatting with me, I've paused the bot, right? Oh, no, I didn't do a good job of pausing the bot. Stop the bot.
I think it will give you that answer anyway, Eric.
Yeah, it may, I may have, so
okay.
here on the back end, right? Here it is. I can come into Copilot. That's the bot answering, but now I've disabled the bot. I can come in, and if I hit draft reply, it should still work. It will come in, and as Artis was kind of saying, like, I don't know when all the FAFSA deadlines are. So this is a way to leverage that knowledge base as a person getting ready to talk to a student, and there you go. It gave me the answer. I could come in here and maybe tweak this or adjust it. I could use my other AI tools to, change the tone, make this very urgent. And you can see Copilot is there. So you can see how both BoltBot and Copilot can come together for student success in that way.
Eric, we've got a really good question in the chat. Lauren's wondering if BoltBot's smart enough to know when information's outdated. So her example is, right, say you have an open house on March 1st, and now I'm coming to the website and I'm interacting with BoltBot on March 2nd and maybe asking about open houses. Is it going to tell me about the March 1st open house, or is it going to tell me about the next date?
It should look, go ahead, Artis.
It should look for upcoming. So if you say upcoming, it's going to know that those dates in the past have passed, and it'll only give you dates in the future. So that's the nice thing so it understands language. That's the whole point. So if you ask it, give me upcoming open houses, then it's going to give you that.
And it knows. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, even better, if you're using Element Events module, you don't even have to tell it that. It'll just look at the events that are loaded in Element Events.
Yes.
So that's a real quick overview of Artis.
BoltBot. Are we doing Copilot in a couple other places?
Yeah, sure. We have a minute or two, so I can go ahead and do that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then we'll take some more questions. But one of the things that we want to make sure is that, again, we're closing that loop. So yes, bots and the knowledge base and everything is going to be in one place, but now we can use that same content, right, to basically do things like, for example, Eric is showing in here, like we have the same AI technologies in how do we generate a really nice email subject line that is best practices, and it's going to be short and friendly, and it's going to use the content of your email to generate those. So here we go. It just generated a whole bunch of subject lines with a different tone, specifically in this case friendly, so it's using an emoji. And again, because it knows that content of the school based on the knowledge base and everything else, it can pull all that context in there, right? So it helps you not just get back to students one-on-one and help with the students, but it helps you with mass communications and kind of these communications that are pre-built already with kind of campaigns and e-com flows as well.
Now, this is an incredibly short email, so it didn't come with a lot of different, but again, it's looking at the content of the email. It's looking at, the other components that are there, and as Artis said, the broader institutional context. As I like to say, we used to spend 45 minutes or an hour in a room going, what's the subject line of this email going to be? And we'd come out with 2 mediocre subject lines to pick from after 45 minutes, right? So this can do yeoman's work in speeding that process up.
Exactly.
In the content itself, just like in conversations, we have Copilot abilities here to change the tone, improve the text, shorten, lengthen, all that good stuff. So this is going to be found throughout Element. These features right now are in preview with a handful of our clients, with more coming on, more partners coming on in that preview. So we're really excited of all the iterations that we're making each and every day to get this to our general release later this spring.
Wait, you mean later this month? Actually, no, tomorrow is later this month. So over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So it is spring, and it'll be later this spring.
This spring.
Over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Yep.
Language.
Yes. The bot would understand what I meant.
That's right.
So I think that is, that's all my demo that I've got. Mallory?
Thank you, Eric. That was great.
That was great. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to reshare the link to our survey in the chat. So that's actually clickable this time. So please, folks, we would love to hear what you thought of our session today. Thanks for your feedback in advance. But before we go, I do just want to plug our webinar next week. So we are going to be presenting on ChatGPT specifically. So this is a follow-on to a session we did earlier this month. And Artis is going to be honing in on prompt engineering for student yield. So we'll reveal a lot of tips and tricks for crafting the right prompts around tone, content personalization, ideation, content transformation. I mean, there's so much that ChatGPT can do to help us. So I'm putting in the chat right now our link to our webinar landing page where you can register for this session. This is an AMA style session. So we want you to bring your questions. We'll make this really interactive. I know Artis is going to have some things prepared, but the webinar will only be better with the great questions that you bring to it. So we look forward to seeing you there and helping deliver some information that will be immediately usable in your yield communications.
Yes. Yeah. We know that yield is top of mind, and sometimes personalization is super important to yield, and kind of building sequences and building things for program specific, for location specific things, like all of that stuff is very important. And one of the things we're going to touch base on is, last webinar, we used GPT 3.5 or 3.5 chat that's based on that. Last week, GPT 4 came out. So it's even better, and we're going to kind of take it for a spin. We don't have a lot of, you probably are going to need a pro account, but it's actually, the output is really even better and even more impressive. So we'll do some great stuff with it next week.
Yeah. It's going to be really fun. But folks, we thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that we were able to showcase the power of how a chatbot can make your team of 3 feel like a team of 1,000. Artis and Eric, thank you both so much for your presentation and this live demo. And we will look forward, friends, to seeing you next week or next time. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.